Hello, everybody. It's Dean here, and I am joined by the marvelous Anna from Digital Dom. Anna,
Hi, Dean.
there's no notes, right?
No notes, no.
So,
How are you?
it's good, and you're very brave for being on this with no notes. So every time I do an episode, I don't script it. I ask people. I think it comes across as more human when we just talk things through. So Anna, do you want to tell us a bit about what you get up to, what Digital Dom's all about, and then I'm going to grill you.
Sure. Let's do that. So I've been running Digital Dom for a couple of years now. Digital Dom is an agile delivery and software development company. So what do? We help organizations to speed up their software delivery and development practices. So essentially, we help them to get the technology as quickly out the door as possible while optimizing delivery frameworks.
Okay. So some people will be going, okay, why? What does this? Everybody's digitizing, right? And I think 2020 made everybody digitize even more. But just land this agile and getting it faster. What do you see the main problems are with when companies want to digitally transform, as they call it?
Well, first of all, transformation means different things to different companies. So it's really just understanding where, and if you take an organization, there will be different steps and different phases of their transformation journey. Some of them are just getting into tech and just realizing that actually we need to digitalize our strategy. Others have been doing it for years, but they understand that actually there's a lot more optimization we can do, because that's essentially what it's all about. Optimizing. You can never be agile enough, if that makes sense. So there's loads.
Is it a bit like a website, right? And apologies if I'm kind of demeaning your profession, but is it a bit like a website? You finish the website, and then, of course, the world moves on. And now, immediately, as soon as the website's out of date, technology improves, the way people behave changes. So the world's constantly spinning. And you go, we're going to build this. We launch it on day one. And then, of course, 3 months down the line, there's new innovation. So when we're talking about agile, are we talking about and transformation? Are we talking about setting ourselves up so that we can keep pace? Or are we talking about coming from the dark ages to a modern time? How do you see the two?
It can be both. But what we're trying to do, so the traditional way of working is you think of an idea, of a concept, you build it, you invest your resources in it, then you launch it, and then you figure out whether that's what your customers want. So in my view, what we're looking to gain from all of this is build experimentation into your ways of working. So whether that's, you think, at the strategy level, I want to go into a new market or launch a new feature or launch a new product, you should be asking yourself, how can I get this in front of the customers as soon as possible? And
like beta testing, almost beta testing in the market.
Beta testing, A/B testing. You can get a prototype up fairly quickly. Get this in front of the customers. Get feedback, because any organization. There's two questions that should be on your mind, and that's: am I delivering value by building this to my customers? And what is the channel that I can reach my customers? So those questions, you should be aiming at answering those questions before you invest any money and time into building a fully fledged solution. So when I hear the word transformation, what it means to me is that you set up your business in a way that you can do that you spend your money in the most efficient way on the best ideas that are actually needed by your customers.
And talking about spending money, I'll tell you a story, and I don't know how common this is, but I see a lot of, when you buy a new car and then you see lots of people with the same car. You ever seen that? You get a new car and then suddenly you see the same car on the road.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, I was working with a client and they were spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on building their own CRM. I'm not joking, right? The developer who was building it drove a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
This is a true story.
Yeah.
Right? And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds went on this software. And when it was launched, after all of this investment, it still didn't quite work as anticipated.
Yeah.
It still needed more stuff doing to it.
No, absolutely. Sorry.
Go on.
This is a classic example. I mean, I've got a few of those in the bag on projects that I've actually worked on. One of the more recent one was, and the biggest one was with EasyJet. I mean, they were working on a product for 3 years without launching a single piece of code into production, only to realize that actually in those 3 years, marketers moved on. So yeah, a lot of it. And that was on a large scale. I was also working with a pharmaceutical client, very similar. They knew that they wanted a B2B platform for their customers launched. And, they went with a well-known ERP system called Oracle, so they'd chosen a module, an e-commerce module, and then they built this, customized it, configured it, launched it, and they had about, spent obviously considerable amounts of money on it, and they had about £1,000 in sales per week. I mean, it would take them quite a few years to get your return on investment. So, and the problem with this is that they had an idea and they thought they knew what the customer wanted, and they didn't test it, and they launched it, and then actually that's not what the user wants. That's not what the customer wants. So it's about not doing that, not making that mistake, and figuring out how is it that on a large scale. So with startup businesses, it's a little bit easier to do. But when you're already used to working and you're a big organization, how do you actually move from a traditional operational model to something that encourages and enables this experimentation?
Mm-hmm. So when a company's looking at this stuff, it's almost like blinkers that are on their thinking. It's not necessarily about expertise in software and stuff like that. It's blinkers on the thought processes or the strategy behind from idea to launch. It's often not hear me right here. It's not the technology that lets them down. It's how they've deployed the technology from the strategy. And whenever I hear people talking about digital transformation, it always gets kind of landlocked into techie stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because people wrongly assume that if we spend a lot of money on tech, surely that's going to give us a return on investment. But there is a couple of issues with that. People internally are maybe not used to this tech, or your customers is not the kind of tech that they need. So people think transformation equals technology, but it doesn't matter how much money you spend on technology, and whether that's the best ERP systems in class, or whether that's the best modern tech stack there is out there. That's not what's going to transform your business.
Mm-hmm. No, it's the strategy behind it to go, well, actually, I can dump this big piece of tech in there, but actually if it doesn't eliminate bureaucracy, if it doesn't help the organization be more efficient, if it doesn't improve customer experience, if it doesn't create revenue, it's useless, right? It's not tech, it's about that transition. So again, it depends where you are in the transformation phase, and how you adapt it. So what really works is what we apply in Digital Dom is work in small batches and experiment and test and get the data, understand and iterate. Maybe
what your customers want, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. But going a little bit slower and getting the buy-in from all the angles, that's going to ensure that your transformation is going to be sustainable. Just throwing loads of money at it, doing it as quickly as possible, and launching as a big bang, then only to realize nobody knows how to use it, and do we even need it? That's one of the biggest mistakes we see organizations actually make.
So how do organizations, where they know that they're doing things in a particular way, and I'm not thinking just about technology here, but I'm thinking more about how do they work to solve some of the problems? I'll give you an example. We've just had a meeting today here about, over time you get kind of like tech fat. That's what I called it today, which is basically you got this gadget and this gadget and this gadget and this gadget, and suddenly all these gadgets that are there to help you become an encumbrance. They add complexity, and we've just spent a time going, how can we get rid of some of the tech? Yeah. How can we get rid of some of it? How can we make our lives easier? But how, as a business evolves, complexity comes in and it creates new problems. How does a business solve problems like that, where it's ingrained because this tech and this tech? How do you get a culture of elimination of unnecessary stuff, but also elimination of problems without being corporate about it and bestowing from on high? How do you get that kind of problem elimination, complexity elimination culture?
Yeah. So very often when there is loads of work to be done, or we're growing at a really fast rate, the organizations think that we need to recruit more people. We need to make somebody responsible. And what they're doing unknowingly is growing into a very hierarchical business. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we actually teach organizations is how to, and we hear that a lot, is how to empower your teams, how to empower your people, because we often treat our people as sort of resources, saying, one person can be on one project, or we put them sort of in a bucket of how much they can do. And we forget that actually we're very flexible beings. We are capable of learning and solving problems. And it then becomes the focus should always be on your people. How can I develop my people in solving really complex problems? And you at the top level, your managers will not always have the vision or the answer for it. So it's just about creating a structure of, I would almost say, mini businesses within your organization that are specialized in a certain end-to-end process that can help you solve that problem. So here is an example. You've just mentioned CRM system. CRM system, depending on the size of the organization, it can be a big project. It can take a year, it can take you 2 years, how long you want to do that. But we skin that problem. So essentially we understand what is it that our customers would like to have tomorrow that they're not getting today, and how can we solve that problem? Then you solve that problem, you test that problem. Essentially that's your experiment. So just to summarize what I just said, so it's about empowering your people, giving the people the opportunity to solve those problems for you, rather than thinking there is a tech that can automate. Don't just think about, okay, let's hire more people and let's make, don't try to refrain from building a very rigid structure within your organization. People are responsible for X, Y, Z. But again, work more in teams, empower your teams.
It's interesting you say that, because I work with a company that helps companies optimize supply chains. And very often the supply chain itself, the warehousing, the procurement, the marketing, the distribution, all of these departments operate in silos. And I was talking to them, and I think I'm going to do a podcast with one of the people from the company. And he said to me that one of the things that organizations generally do is one department tries to solve a problem, solves it for themselves, but creates another one for another department.
Yeah.
And then the other department tries to solve it by doing something else, which creates a problem somewhere else. And in one scenario, he's saying to me about Department A decides to cut costs, so they change the way they work to reduce costs. But inadvertently, Department B then has increased costs because now they have to hire an extra person to manage that complexity. And so that person now is providing new reports to Department C, and Department C is now having to do extra work. And what happens is the saving in the silo becomes an additional cost in the business.
Yeah, I really like how you've actually put this. Every single organization I've worked with so far, silos is a problem for everyone. And this is why this is what I refer to as a traditional way of working. You know, you put accountants together, you put marketing people together, you put salespeople together, and then they optimize the sales process, but that creates more work for the marketing department or for tech or whatever it is. So the new way of working would be that you see with more agile organizations, you know, such as Spotify and Facebook, and sort of that we see as examples of how of agile way is working, is essentially creating cross-functional teams. So a team should be able to solve a problem that's end-to-end. And what does end-to-end mean? It means that they start off and they solve that problem for the actual customer, because even when you're trying to save costs and optimize your invoicing process, this is still adding value to the customer. So it is about grouping the people together. So in that process, for example, if I was to put this together just on top of my head, you have somebody from accounting because they know how the accounting system works. You have somebody from sales because eventually it's their customer. You have somebody from marketing, and you have two tech people. So this is a cross-functional team. And eventually when you have a problem, you say, it takes way too long for our customers to pay our invoices, and you give that problem to the team. Then because within that team, there's so much expertise, they'll come up with a potential solution. Again, I say potential because we don't know until we test. Mm-hmm. Put something together in a small batch, whether that's, okay, well, let's try and apply this quick fix. They launch this and they look at the metrics. Is this working? Has that particular process, end-to-end process, actually improved? What, can we see improvement in sales? Can we see an improvement in accounting, and all of those metrics put together? So yeah, that's
and then the solution is tested.
The solution is
collectively.
What you've then realized, okay, you can see you've done you've added value to the customer. The solution is just put together really quickly, and it's maybe on a back end point, from a developer's point of view, it's not very scalable. But you now realize that this is a requirement because it's actually optimized your efficiency.
It's almost like starting with a blank paper, isn't it? It's like going, this is the problem. Marketing, sales, tech, all of these people come in, and it's like, how do we get the best solution for this? Bearing in mind, if we do this, this happens to sales, this happens to, and you find a solution that is the least friction in the whole process. If it works, like a field test, I call it, with writing content, field testing. You post it and see what happens, post it, see what happens, and then learn from it and improve. It's kind of the same model. Sit everybody down, find an idea, see if it works, do a little field test. Oh, that could work. And then you could build some infrastructure, technology to make it scale, right? Is that what
you're... That's the way you eliminate silos, by getting the right people to work on a problem rather than on a specified solution.
Whereas if you had, say, the finance department work on it, they would work on it. Well, let's give you an example. Finance department could work on reducing the debtor days, for an example, but actually annoy a load of customers at the same time.
Yeah. This is the sort of problems you get by working in silos.
Whereas you could have a system, whereby finance does their bit, sales does their bit, and you eliminate the debtor days without annoying the customers.
Yeah, you should always aim to apply cross-functionality, first of all, to your product development functions. And I'm not talking just about tech. So how many departments are involved in producing your service or working on the products or product development function? That should be your first step to create cross-functionality and break down the hierarchies and empower your teams. That is also our first when we work with organizations on their transformation journey, that is where we add value and where we work the most with them.
And how do you get, I'm just reminded of I don't know whether you remember this, but I think it was the late 90s or maybe the early 2000s. The NHS decided to launch your online account so you could have your health online, and they digitized. And they spent about £8 billion on this system, launched it on the first day, and it collapsed.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know whether you heard about this.
Dean, let's not talk about public services. It gets me very, very frustrated by how much money we are spending on tech for our government, where it could be done in a much more efficient way, and we keep outsourcing it, and we don't try to build an internal function where we actually implement that mentality of experimentation. Let's see what our customers need. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there. Let me put it this way.
That kind of cross-functionality or collaboration between departments in that way,
yeah,
that's quite a culture change you have to make in the way people work. Because often in an organization that's quite hierarchical, people can become quite defensive of their little patch. How have you dealt with that kind of protectionism within silos? Yeah.
I mean, there is a nice way of doing it. It is always going to upset people. And if you want to make change, you're going to have to face the facts that some people will not like it because this is how they've been working. So this is something you're going to have to accept.
And some people might think the innovation might cost them their job, right?
The innovation might cost them their job. Suddenly their job spec completely changes. They've used something in a certain way and it's been working. Why do I need to change now? And the thing is, all of this frustration is quite normal. All these emotions are quite normal, and to be fair, Dean, probably you and I, if we're some things we've been doing for a long time, and suddenly somebody comes along and says, look, you can do it in a different way, depending on how they say it, but it's very natural to initially feel a little bit of resistance. There's nothing wrong with that, and it is about managing that. So you have to have a good communication plan for how you're going to manage those feelings. You're just going to have to, whether you do this as per department, per team, or you do it organization wide, that's just going to depend per business, what's going to be the best approach. So we've done it on where we've looked at, okay, what department can we make the most impact on? It's in which department feels the most pain. Let's start with that. Then as that experiment is successful, you can see people are happier. Other departments naturally want to know what's going on. I want to do that. I want to work less and be more productive, those kind of things. So there's different approaches.
And I suppose the option of going too drastic, too quick, I mean, the way you're suggesting it is simple, straightforward steps that drive little steps towards improvement, rather than like with the software development scenario, they try and build it and launch it in one go and then realize there's a whole load of flaws with it. It is baby steps, because there is a danger if you try and, affect too much business transformation to make yourself, like, the odd thing about life is if you do something to an excess, it actually causes the problem that you were trying to avoid. In other words, in order to digitally transform or to affect a business transformation, you go too far too fast and actually can't deliver the transformation, or actually go backwards and become more cumbersome as an organization. You can break people's spirits going too quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is about making small steps, working in small batches, understanding, getting the feedback, acting upon the feedback, and also you want your transformation to be sustainable. You can make a change today. You can overhaul everything fairly quickly, but is this sustainable? Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to be the difference between a successful transformation and not. And as you do it in smaller steps and you implement new ways of working, there will be people, as we call them, change agents. People are going to be very excited about it, and those are almost the people that you want to create, that are going to continue with the enthusiasm and positivity, and people will just they'll just like that, and then that's how it spreads, right?
You're building an innovators.
Yeah.
Instead of at the top going, we need to innovate this business, what you're doing is empowering everybody to be an innovator. Not in the sense that, you're all over the show, but actually to channel that innovation into efficiency. Absolutely. And into better outcomes for customers, better business that works. It's funny why people haven't been doing this for a long time. Why is it something that's only come out recently? Is because we've realized the world has changed, and many businesses, it was about process, which is still about process, but it was about process and control. And then you reach a point where actually you have to function differently. You need processes, you need control, but because of the speed the world is working at, when we work with fax machines, it didn't matter, right? You could be as slow as you wanted to be because the world turns so slow.
Yeah.
But now it's like, no. Somebody's just launched a startup and they've just acquired 1 million customers, and now we can't rest on our laurels. We got to move, guys, now.
Absolutely. And from my perspective, this is exactly what has caused this, is that organizations have been very comfortable and have had loads of market share. Now, suddenly their competition comes out of a startup that's only been going for about a year. But what the difference is that the startups have this experimentation mindset embedded. They don't have a lot of budget. They need to start small, build small, test, and iterate from then on. So it's already built into how they work. And then suddenly it's not about how long you've been on the market. It's about how quickly you can learn and implement those changes. Mm-hmm. And that's why now it doesn't matter if you are, if you've got 10,000 employees, 20,000 employees, you could be gone next year. If you don't learn to experiment, you don't change.
Anybody remember Skype?
Yeah, I mean, there is quite a few companies that were on the high street only 5 years ago that are now gone.
Yeah, it's just fascinating with the Skype story, because it's like Skype was tech, and Skype really, Zoom was around, but Skype really owned the market quite a bit. And then suddenly around the pandemic, Zoom just went, yeah. And like, who even uses Skype now?
Yeah. No, you're right, but I think there is the issue for organizations is there is a lot of literature out there. There's loads of knowledge on how, on all these frameworks, on empowering your teams and culture change and all of that. But there is still not quite enough practical examples on how we've done it effectively. There's big companies that are trying and doing that. Some of them are successful. It just, again, depends how you define success. But larger organizations are puzzled. How do I transition? from working how I've been working for the past 20 years and seeing my products and services in a certain way. How do I reimagine? How do I rebuild essentially my value chain from scratch? And I wish I could just come on here and say, there you go, step number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you do that, I can guarantee it's going to happen for you. But it's not the case.
It would be immature. It would be immature for an organization to think there is a 10-step process for some of this stuff, because I've always, one of my little mottos I use here is, because we came from me being just Dean, and we built from just Dean. So all the systems have been Dean systems, which some of them weren't very good. And as people came in, they changed it. But I said to everybody, we're going to have to build the plane whilst we're flying it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But in your scenario, I think a lot of your clients that you're helping them with is rebuild the plane whilst flying it.
Yes, rebuild the engine while flying.
Yeah,
it is really scary. There's loads of risk involved, and what's going to happen to my plane? Maybe it's not even going to look like a plane. How am I going to navigate that plane? So it's just that unknown and that uncertainty. First of all, not knowing where you're going into and how to get there is really scary to do. Yeah.
No, I think this is, this has almost become, digital transformation for me. Before we were talking properly, and not just today, in previous, it was always, for me, was a buzzword for a clever IT technical person. But the more I've spoke to you, the more I see that this is actually, it's an industry in itself. It's like change management. It is change management. It's like, your business is here, it's selling this and it's doing this, and you're trying to future-proof it and stay competitive, stay where the market is. And that requires you to adapt and persistently and consistently adapt. And that is, for me, whilst there is a tech angle to that, for me, that's an industry in itself. The art of how do you keep the business functioning and safely remodel it.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, so you hear a lot about agile transformation and digital transformation, but in essence, what you're doing is just you transforming your business. So the right term for this is business transformation. I think agility talks more about the ways of working, your culture and people, whereas digital is how do you leverage technology. And it just happens the way that technology nowadays is what's going to leverage, our transformation. But essentially, you are completely reimagining how your business is going to work.
Yeah, which is something we all have to live with, because the world keeps spinning, even if we don't want it to.
Absolutely.
Anna, this has been fantastic, really insightful. Where's the best place for people to reach you if they're considering a project and want to make sure that they do it in the right way?
I would say there's 2 ways. There's a website you can have a look at. The email address is on there, or just feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn.
So website address is digitaldom.io. digitaldom.io, and connect with you on LinkedIn is awesome. Drop you a message on there.
Yeah.
Anna, you've been a star. Thank you for coming on. Totally unscripted. I think you'll agree she's been fantastic. And Anna, I look forward to catching up again soon, because this was really interesting. I'd really love to hear some more insights on where the world's going next time as well. So thank you so much.